Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we meet yet once again on Modern and Modest. And we bring you very motivational, inspirational speakers every week from the Arabistro restaurant here in Durban. And today we'll be introducing to you motivational speaker Aisha Milanzi. And our topic for discussion is balancing deen and dunya. Assalamu alaikum Aisha, and welcome to Modern and Modest.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me.
Only a pleasure. So Aisha, I can see all the excitement written all over you. We understand that you have just completed your LLB degree. So tell us when this happened for you, and just to introduce yourself a bit to our viewers.
Okay. Well, my name is Aisha Milanzi. I just completed it 2 days ago.
Okay.
It still feels so surreal. So I'm still floating in the air about that, still excited. I can't believe that 4 years has passed just like that. Well, just a little bit about me. I'm from Pietermaritzburg, and I'm studying here. And I don't know. I'm still in that float of happiness. Sometimes I don't have words. I just can't describe it.
Alhamdulillah. So the 4 years has finally come to an end, and you've completed. So Aisha, tell us, why have you chosen to study law?
I felt like it was something that I could relate to, and something that would essentially make use of my strong points. Some of my strong points involve writing as well as speaking. Okay. So I think those two incorporated with law just make for a perfect combination. And I've always had a sense of justice, and I remember growing up and seeing the news and not understanding wherein somebody would get bail, or when a criminal gets out, and I'm like, I don't understand the system, what's going on. Okay. So I think law for me was just to clarify all of those confusions that I had as a kid growing up. And it was always something my teachers in high school would be like, I think you should be a lawyer. It sounded nice. So I was like, so it was, let's do this.
Pretty much curiosity. You needed to understand law better. Yeah. So Aisha, we know that law, there's such a broad spectrum in law. So where do you plan on taking law? What do you want to pursue in law?
Well, the big dream is to one day be able to work in the African courts. And I see myself being more of a human rights lawyer. Okay. Because like for me, I feel like those are issues that I could easily tackle, or rather issues that I relate to. Like I find I'm more relatable to socioeconomic issues, being somebody that was brought up in a household that didn't have everything. So okay. I understand people that are in those predicaments as well, you know. So I hope to be a helping hand to those that don't have any and need a voice and be a voice for them.
Okay. So 4 years has been a long time on campus, and I understand that you come pretty much from a very staunch Islamic background. Talk to us about that. What was it like for you to be on campus, getting out in the real world, yet coming from a very staunch Islamic background?
Yes. Oh, wow. True, I do come from a very Islamic family, but I think the advantage is that my parents have never been people that kept me, so to say, in a bubble. Okay. They always tried their best to expose me to reality as much as possible. So there was never ever a time where it was like, no, you have to do this. And in some instances, they would also allow for me to do wrong so that I can learn from it, or rather let me learn from my mistakes. Okay. So I think that was one of the main reasons why they even allowed me as a girl, unmarried, to go and study in university on my own and stay on my own with non-Muslims, because perhaps they had that faith in me. And most of the challenges, I wouldn't necessarily say it was challenges. I feel like the same curiosity I had to study law was the same curiosity that non-Muslims have when they look at Muslims. Sure. They're intrigued. Staying in my first house actually made me open my eyes as to how people aren't necessarily ignorant. It's just they want to know, but they never know how to ask. Like I remember one of the girls in my house, she was beating around the bush wanting to ask me why I bought that 5 a.m. in the morning, or sometimes earlier than that. And it was like, okay, I want to ask, but I don't know how to ask. And I was like, just ask and I'll let you know. So I think moving from an Islamic house into a situation of with non-Muslims, etc. I found myself to more so be somebody that's like that can educate people or let them know as to exactly why Muslims do the things that we do. And alhamdulillah, today I have friends, non-Muslims, that if I say something, they're quick to be like, inshallah, or
That's
add in a
amazing.
mashallah, be like,
Okay.
alhamdulillah. And friends will be like, oh, you have to make wudu now. During Ramadan, they'd be like, Seri time now, you gotta go eat. So I think that has been a learning
So pretty
experience.
much you've actually lived with a new family, not necessarily practicing Muslims, but it was just that mix which allowed people to learn from you and gain a bit of knowledge about Islam.
Yes,
so to say.
definitely from a new family, because I also got to learn some of the things that they do and their perspective. So I think it has been a learning experience for both religions from my point of view. And yeah, you could say new family, because I mean, if I'm sick, these are the first people that I have to tell,
Great.
because my parents are all the way in Pietermaritzburg. So I have definitely found a new family.
So actually, let's speak about challenges in university. Being a Muslimah on university, is that a challenge? Did you experience any negativity in the 4 years that you've been studying?
Well, the first year that I came in, I feel like perhaps I gave myself the negativity. I was very conscious. Like, I was like, how are people going to react to the hijab? Am I going to find any other hijabis? Am I going to find people that are like Muslims as well? So, you know, I can have Muslim friends. Because not only do I come from a staunch Islamic background, but I've only been to Islamic schools, all the way from my preschool to my high school.
All right.
So I hadn't experienced anything else. So I was very anxious. And surprisingly enough, when I went in first year, people don't care, literally. Like, you wear your hijab, you don't wear your hijab, you're on campus. I think there's just that attitude of, you here for a certain goal, achieve it. We're not going to be in your business, so to say. And the only issues perhaps I had were people having stereotypes about Muslims and who they are. First of all, being an African Muslim, there's always a stereotype of, oh, you're only Muslim so that you can gain benefits from the richer Muslims. I had a conversation with somebody that was like, are Africans really Muslims? Where does African Islam come from? We haven't heard of that. If you African Muslim, are you Zulu? And if so, what happens to the Zulu traditions? Do you follow them, etc., etc.? And then others would be, the scarf that you're wearing, it's a sign of oppression and you can't see it because that's how oppressed you are. And then the solution really was a conversation, a civilized conversation.
So just educating them more on
Yes,
those.
a conversation for us to sit down, ask them, where do you take the stereotype from? What makes you say it? And oddly enough, like with one conversation particularly that stands out that I had with a colleague of mine, that he was like, no, you Muslims only wear the scarf, most of y'all, because you're afraid of your parents. And I was like, no. I was like, that doesn't
Just
even make sense,
misconception, yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then when I asked him why, he made sense, because he told me about another girl that he had been to high school with that wear the hijab, but as soon as she'd come on the school premises, she'd remove it. And then when leaving, she'd put it back on. So seeing from her action, he already created this misconception that that's how all Muslim girls act, and that the hijab is forced onto us. So I think it was just a conversation of saying that different strokes for different flocks, and trying to make him understand as to the value of hijab and why we choose to wear it, and how not everybody understands that, and it takes time.
Okay. It's just rather sad or disappointing that you could have those questions raised when you would think people would understand better that oppression is something that people may have heard of in the past. I don't know if it actually exists in our current times. So, okay, so would you say that in your first year you were pretty much overthinking what your first year of university would be? I think you made it difficult on yourself, and yet people accept you in whichever way, whether you were a hijabi or non-hijabi.
True.
And was it challenging for you to find the right mix when you got onto university? How difficult or how easy was it for you to find your circle?
I remember on campus, the first day I went, I sat at the back, and but along the passages, I had met a girl. Her name was Elizabeth. We're still friends till today. And I met her, and she was like, hey, I'm also going to a law class. I was like, oh, that's nice. I'm also going as well. Okay. So that was my first friend. We went into class. And then the next person I noticed was this girl who happens to now be my best friend. She came in late, and I'm like, she's brave. Secondly, and then thirdly, girl walks all the way from the back to the front of the lecture hall, and I'm like, I really want to be just as brave as her. Okay. And then after the lecture, I went and spoke to her, and she was like, "Oh, hi, my name is Sakina." Then we ended up going to the Jamaat Khana, and then that's really how my circle started. So I had Elizabeth, who was Christian, I had Sakina, who was Muslim, and then through them, I met other girls, and then it just became an ensemble of all religions. And
Okay, well, Aisha, I can't agree more that hijab is beautiful, but yes, we need to find that balance with deen and dunya, and the misconception of people not knowing what hijab is about, and people tend to think that we are oppressed. And just from my personal experience, I mean, I'm out in the real world and I wear hijab, and I just find that it's pretty much a decision that you make on your own. And people are very welcoming of you as a person. In fact, I think people look up at you because hijab is so elegant. And whether you're out in business or whether you're out studying on campus, I think it's pretty much a decision you make and how you wear it. And I don't find it restrictive at all. And I'm sure you can say the same.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll take a quick ad break, and when back, we'd like to discuss more with you how you found the balance with deen and dunya. Okay, so after the ad break, we'll be chatting more to Aisha. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Modern and Modest. And with me today, we have Aisha Milanzi, and our topic for discussion is balancing deen and dunya. So Aisha, you've been 4 years on campus, and I'm sure that would have been challenging for you, balancing deen and dunya, being out in the real world. Tell us what it was like for you for the 4 years that you've been out in the real world.
Most challenging part was trying to decide whether to write the main exam on Eid day or to defer it, and that's like, you really I think that's one of the most challenging parts of it, you know. It's like being Muslim is a way of life. And then your studies are also extremely important because that's the way you want to make your life. You want to better it. So it was difficult trying to juggle the two because like I just said, wherein we'd have a test on a certain day and it fell on Eid. Or you have a test and it's going to be at Jummah time, you know, and writing emails and to the lecturers for them to understand. I think that for me, that was one of the biggest challenges, like how exactly the timetable would be set out. It takes into regard others, but I don't think that we, the minority, meaning Muslims, I don't think we are necessarily taken into that consideration.
And let's speak about, you know, you hear all sorts of stories when young people are in university, and you hear things like peer pressure. And if you coming now from a strong Islamic background, and you are on campus,
yes.
How do you find that balance? Do you think there is something like peer pressure? Do you think it's there? How does a Muslimah manage that? How do you find your balance?
There's definitely peer pressure. I remember when I moved to Durban, I was so shocked because in my head I was under the notion that it's just going to be me and my parents. My parents would come and drop me off. My surprise, my entire family was coming. And I'm like, where are all 20 people of you going, you know? And I remember when they left me at the house, I don't know, maybe perhaps it was an unsaid rule. I noticed that my dad and uncles all said their farewells and they left. And it was just my mom and the aunts. And I immediately was like, did I do something wrong? And it was just them like, don't forget who you are. We've trusted you. We want you to educate yourself and to better yourself and to put yourself in positions that we couldn't get to. So in whatever you do, don't forget that first you're Muslim and then everything else falls secondary. And I think that's the advice that I took and I just ran with it. Of course, there's been peer pressures. My friends drink and party. I've been offered to go to a club several amount of times, including on my birthday. It's like, don't you want to turn up? And I think it's just my mother's words always ringing like, what if I die there? Like, I know I'm being extreme with it, but for me, that was my way to overcome that. And also at every point and every single thing that I do, I don't ever forget that I'm Muslim.
So I think it pretty much comes back to your upbringing and your grounding. I think if you
Definitely.
have the correct grounding, there's a space for a Muslimah anywhere in the world.
True.
So as long as you have your priorities right and you
your
have
principles.
your principles and your upbringing, it's a constant reminder that I'm not supposed to be in a certain space at a certain
And
time.
you know, I was actually having this conversation with my friend, and I was like, I feel like I truly became a Muslim when my parents left me alone in university first
Pretty
year.
much you take
Yeah,
responsibility for yourself.
because growing up, I grew up in a Muslim household, so there was always that fear of, oh my God, if I don't pray, my mom's going to see me. You know, there's always that background like, oh my God, you're going to get in trouble. When my parents left me for the first week, it was really free. I was like, I don't have to do anything. Like, budget, okay, I missed it. It is what it is. Like, there was just that attitude of, it happened, it happened. And then I don't know what brought it on, but it was just a thing of, you need to grow up, accept accountability. Oh, I remember I brought it up. I was on Instagram and there was a post that spoke about death. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not under my parents' wing. Like, I'm not under their wing anymore. I am now a fully grown woman. And every decision that I make from here and out, it's on me. And my actions and my conduct, I'm the only person that can be responsible for that. And I think that's the attitude that I have with regards to peer pressure of, as much as I want to have fun, as much as I want to live my best life, let me do it in a way that when I die, I'd be able to die with a less heavy heart. Because I can't necessarily sit here and be like, I'm the best of Muslims. But I'd like to die with some peace to say that, Alhamdulillah, I've tried my hardest to live a life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with me when I pass away. So that thought always kept with me. And I remember seeing a hadith that said that something about how a believer who always reminds himself of death never loses his path. So there isn't a night that I sleep without remembering death.
So would you say that getting out of the house and given the opportunity to go to university, is that when you actually grow as your own person? You start
Definitely.
taking responsibility for
And
yourself.
definitely, and for me, if I could, I'd go to every Muslim home and be like, please send your daughter out, you know, because I think, especially, and I say daughters because I feel like male children already have this freedom.
Yes.
Like my brother can disappear for like a week and be like, oh, he's by your cousin's house, and it's okay. Then for a girl, it's like,
Yeah.
no, you can't do that. So I think when you're given that freedom, firstly, you already know that your parents trust you, so you're not trying to do anything that will have them mistrust you in any
Sure.
sort of way, and you most certainly grow. Because growing up, I feel like we children have an attitude of, when you ask your parent for something and they're like, oh no, I can't give you that. You're like, why? But you just got paid. It's month end. You're supposed
Yes.
to have. And then suddenly when your allowance come in and you're like, ish, I really can't go to the mall this month. Eh? Like you
Yeah.
realize
You
and
start budgeting for yourself.
yes, you,
and
you,
so
you
forth.
start to see things in a better light. You start to see the decisions that your parents took and exactly why they took it. And being in university showed me why some parents be like, I don't want my kid to stay out of campus, out of the home. And then you also see as to why some parents are more keen, like to be like, no, go out and learn and study.
So would you say there is a space for Muslimas to be able to go to university?
Yes, I feel like there most certainly is space for Muslim women, in not only in the university but in the world. Today we want our daughters, we want them to be treated by Muslim doctors. We want female scholars to advise our daughters on certain issues that are affecting them. So I think most certainly there's a lot of space for Muslim women, and I don't think I can say any further on that besides saying that.
So Aisha, let's chat about your hijab. You wearing hijab to university, and there was this question about it being Muslimas being oppressed by wearing the hijab. Give us the positive feedback you've received from wearing hijab. We chatted about the negative. Let's talk about the positive. How well were you received being a hijabi?
So last year we had a picnic and I put it up on my status, and a few of my friends were quite excited, non-Muslim friends. They're like, oh, would like to come. One friend in particular, Trish, she was like, I'd like to come and could you dress me up as a Muslim? And so she came home, we found a cloak for her, we found a hijab for her, shoes, everything, the whole look. And it was really nice to know that there are people out there that would actually like to learn how to wear the hijab and wear the hijab uh, just as a show of support and also because they're curious, you know. And several of my housemates have asked me to show them how to wear the hijab, and most of them, when they've worn it, have been like, "Oh wow, this actually feels real nice. Like I look so nice in this." Okay. And I don't. There's always a perception of, are you feeling too hot? Are you feeling too cold? Are you choking? And they're like, "Oh wow, this feels totally normal." And I'm like, guys, the hijab is just as normal as wearing a weave would be or anything else, you know. For us, this is our security and how we as Muslim women feel beautiful and
I think also being away from home, you sort of feel protected. It's your form of protection when you wear your hijab, your identity as well, wearing a hijab. So after you've been wearing hijab to campus, did you find that other Muslims felt more comfortable in wearing the hijab because they had someone that was already wearing it?
I most certainly noticed more hijabis.
Great.
Like in comparison to when I came in, perhaps like first semester, I was like, she looks Muslim. Or like, you know, you'd hear the girl's name and be like, oh, okay, you're one of us. I accept you in our community. So afterwards, it became like I won't necessarily say clique, because we still had our individual friends, but you could definitely notice the Muslim girls more. And going to a Jamaat Khana on Friday, you'd see familiar faces. And yeah, so I feel like right now we Muslim girls are living our best life. We are comfortable in who we are, and we aren't shy about it anymore.
Alhamdulillah. So Aisha, what advice can you share with our viewers, maybe the girls that are looking to one day study further? What advice would you give them, and what advice would you give to their parents?
It reminds me of a hadith that says, "Talabun al faridatun ala kulli Muslim," and to seek knowledge is very important for every Muslim. So I'd like to encourage parents that although sometimes it doesn't seem like it's the best decision at that point in time, just let your child go and let them study, let them see and experience the world for themselves. And I know my mom is probably going to kill me since I'm saying this out loud, but I think that the whole notion of a girl should only leave her home when she gets married should somewhat be not really erased, but just scratched in pencil for like a little bit. For me personally, I felt like these 4 years are the best gift that my parents have ever given me, because it allowed me to be free. It allowed me to see the type of person I am, the type of grown-up individual that I'd be, and what steps I need to take in order to better myself. And I think that's very important for each and every single girl out there, for them to know themselves and to learn themselves and to become independent, not only financially, but in thought and in who they are, essentially.
I think it also allows you to cope better as an individual. Certainly. Not being under the wing of your parents all the time.
Yeah, you learn to take responsibility. You learn to see that your actions have a consequence, and for that you need to be careful.
Okay, so Aisha, it was very interesting listening to your story, your 4 years on university, and I'd like to thank you for joining us and those words of encouragement to our viewers.
Thank you for having me.
And all the best on pursuing your degree in law. And I'm sure you do a pretty good job of it too. Well, that was Aisha Milanzi, a motivational speaker, and which is a beautiful discussion balancing deen and dunya. And after the ad break, we'll be chatting to yet another inspirational speaker. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Modern and Modest. And with me today we have Safura Khan from SANZAF and the Phoenix Light Group for the Physically Challenged. Now, Safura, alhamdulillah, we meet yet again. We have chatted not so long ago, but tell us more about what's happened. What have you been involved with since our last discussion?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah, I need to say thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the strength and the energy to do what we've done. And I just want to define, SANZAF is a social welfare and educational organization that strives to facilitate the empowerment of families through development and training. That's where I come. I'm the HOD of Skills Development. And the Phoenix Light Group for the Physically Challenged is responsible for organizing social, recreational, and rehabilitation programs and activities for people with disabilities in Durban and surrounding areas. And the question you asked me is what have I been doing? Well, with SANZAF, I'm constantly offering skills development, running the job seekers meeting, employment bureau, being a life skills facilitator myself, where I teach life skills and do various consults. In terms of the Phoenix Light Group, I've organized the annual getaway for people with disabilities. I've organized a fun walk. I've organized a Women's Day conference for women with disabilities. And the theme this year was to encourage women with disabilities to get into small business or do something to sustain themselves.
So you've had a rather busy year then, Safura?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Safura, we know that you've attended an event pretty recently. Tell us more about the event. What was it about? How many people attended? What was it called?
All right. The event was organized in partnership with the Phoenix Light Group and SANZAF. The event was called the Blind Navigators Regularity Rally 2019. And seeing that November is the month for persons with disabilities, going right up to the 3rd of December, which is the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. So I want to say at this stage that I am very proud of ITV for even allowing us this feature, because we need to be able to understand people with disabilities and create an awareness, as you would say, about disabilities. So the Blind Navigators Rally is a motor sport in partnership with SANZAF and Phoenix Light, as I mentioned, and where drivers had to drive navigators through a pre-calculated route schedule. Now, the route schedule is pre-calculated, and I will read a little bit about it just now. Okay. As you know, I have my route schedule open. And it's basically allowing the navigator to tell the driver where to go. So the driver is totally dependent on the navigator. Because the driver really doesn't know where he or she is going. You have to follow the braille instructions. So it is a motor sport, and it's a social event, and it was wonderful. We had 40 cars take part, and navigators of all color, kind, and creed.
So Safura, I'm just going to interrupt you. You say 40 cars, you've had 40 drivers, obviously 40 navigators. So where did this event take place, and when did this happen?
Okay, the event took place on Sunday, the 10th of November, and we started and finished the event at the Durban Bowling Club.
All right. And did you participate in that event? Have you in the past? Was it something new to you this year?
Blind Navigators is not new to me.
Okay.
This is our 6th event in partnership with SANZAF and our organization. I normally wait to go as the last car, because if I'm the organizer, I think it will be selfish of me to assign myself a driver and go and have fun when there's another blind navigator who have probably traveled a long way and don't have a driver. And by the way, we've had navigators all the way from Johannesburg that also participated in this event.
Okay. You mentioned something about people needing to be more aware of those with disabilities. Do you find that not many people are aware of those with disabilities?
Yes. Firstly, people are not aware of the different disabilities. Secondly, people need to be educated about that. I mean, a visually impaired person can be visually impaired or partially sighted. Just like a hearing impaired person, he could be profoundly deaf or partial hearing. Or someone that has one leg or a paraplegic or even a mentally challenged person. Society has become so stereotyped. They make decisions for people with disabilities by assumption, and that shouldn't be. Nothing about us without us. Talk to us. We are the people. We know what our needs and wants are. The Blind Navigators Rally, for example, will educate a driver on sighted guide technique. How do you lead a blind person? How do you have confidence in that person? And you can have fun. I mean, motorsport is done regularly. So, you learn, you understand. I mean, if you look at employment, the Employment Equity Act by law states very clearly that 5% of your employees should be persons with disabilities.
Do you find that
That doesn't happen.
I was just about to ask, do you find that that happens? How many companies actually employ people with disability?
This is why we would like companies to talk to us. I'm prepared to run training programs that companies need to appoint people with disabilities. And also there is kickback from government for doing that. But people are not aware and not educated in these aspects. I can run a disability workshop training for companies to tell them, because immediately companies think, oh, we're going to employ somebody, it's going to cost us money, we got to do this and we got to do that. Yes, in some cases you have to. If you're employing a wheelchair person, you can't expect them to climb 10 steps of the wheelchair.
So Safura, with you being engaged in seeking employment for those with disabilities, how challenging do you find that?
It's very challenging. I mean, even people with all their abilities today can't find jobs. So how much more challenging it is with people with disabilities.
Let's chat about how successful you've been in I don't know, how long have you been trying to seek employment for those that have disabilities?
We do try regularly. It's a process, because you see, firstly, for a wheelchair person, you need to see the infrastructure of that place in terms of toilets, in terms of steps. And then for hearing impaired people make such excellent drivers. But obviously, to communicate with them, the people who employ them need to learn sign language. So yes, there is adjustments, but it's worth making those adjustments.
So what would you say your success rate has been finding those with disabilities, getting them the job placements?
It's very difficult. I wouldn't even say success rate. Okay. I would say we're lucky if we place 2 people a month, and we don't do that every month. Sometimes there's no people with disabilities placed at all. So I won't even use this word success at all, to that end.
So Safura, taking us back to November, marking Disability Month, creating awareness for those with disabilities, tell us about what type of activities take place around this time of the year.
There's a lot of activities taking place. For example, we had the Blind Navigators Rally, which was on Sunday, the 10th of November. On the 1st of December, we're going to be organizing a book fair at Mitchell Park. Now, there is a book fair every first Sunday of every month at Mitchell Park. Okay. But this year, you could come to the book fair, and where we are giving authors with disabilities that have published books. And it's going to be held on the 1st of December. Then on the 3rd of December, what I plan to do is we're going to have the theme C. So we're going to organize surfing for people with disabilities.
Okay.
And even if you don't have any legs, they can strap you on a surfboard, and we're going to do surfing. Secondly, we're going to have a few people with disabilities doing sailing for an hour and go on a short sailing course. Okay. And thirdly, we're going to have people on a tandem bicycle cycling. So that's my plan for the International Day for Persons with Disabilities.
So who organizes these activities, Safura? Are you involved in that?
There are various role players doing various activities. For example, the Society for the Blind in Ambelo, which is called the KZN Society for the Blind, they'll be planning activities. Then you have the KZN Blind and Deaf Society that will be planning activities. There's the APC, there's mental health. They all do various activities.
We'll take a quick ad break, and when back, we'll be chatting more to Safura Khan from SANZAF and the Phoenix Light Group for the physically challenged. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Modern and Modest. And with me today we have Safura Khan from SANZAF and the Phoenix Light Group for those that are physically challenged. Now, Safura, we chatted a fair amount about November being the month for those that battle with disabilities. But how could we get involved? What type of support could we offer to those with disabilities?
First and foremost, as a community, we need to learn about different disabilities. And as a community, we need to ask how we can get involved, just like you did. So the only way you could do that is to contact the different organizations and associations for information. Or you could also contact me in advice, or perhaps if businesses want to hold workshops for employment and the community want to be able, because you need drivers to drive people with disabilities from point A to point B. We have a lot of retired people that actually have nothing to do. Maybe they can become volunteers. Then they could actually become readers to visually impaired people. They could take a paraplegic shopping. Or there is so much, there is a great need. But the need can only be fulfilled if both the community and the business is educated on the needs that people with disabilities require.
Okay, so I think the first step is just to get in touch with organizations to educate us more about those with disabilities, and maybe then we can understand better as to what we need to do to get involved.
Yes, creating the awareness is so very important.
Okay. So Safura, we understand that November is a month that we focus a lot on people with disabilities, and the community needs to get involved. But let's speak about gender-based violence. Do we find that this is prevalent with those people that have disabilities as well? Do you hear of that?
Yes, absolutely. It is a very, very real with people with disabilities as well as with people with no disabilities. So gender-based violence affects us all, and it's abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse against women and children. And being an activist, it is important that we take a stand on violence, gender-based violence, and talk about emotional abuse. You know, so many disabled people, the guys would make them believe that they are in love with them and use up all their disability money. And it's sick, it's a sick thing. But they do that and leave them with nothing because they are so vulnerable. People with disabilities look for love. They want to love and be loved. And so they get into relationships where people take their money away from them and beat them up. And in the normal world as well, I mean, if you look at the news, you switch on your radio, you open a page of the newspaper. I mean, right now in court, there's a man who's being tried to murder his 3 children and his stepdaughter in Pinetown, it was. I mean, and women are not safe anywhere. And it's time that whether it's disability or no disabled people, we need to take a stand against gender-based violence. It is something that we need to do. Women are taken advantage of. Children are taken advantage of.
Safura, you mentioned something rather disturbing now, where women are taken advantage of, where their funds are being used in false relationships, and these women are those that are disabled. How would you correct that? What steps are you taking to stop this from happening? Obviously, we can't allow this to continue.
Absolutely. Firstly, I think we need to encourage the person with the disability about self-confidence, respecting your body, being strong emotionally, and how to cope with loneliness. Because if they know how to cope with loneliness, how to deal with emotions, and how to realize whether this person really loves you or not, is abusing your money. And so again, it boils down to creating an awareness, and it's education and training again. And to avoid loneliness, how do we get women to be involved in more activities and encourage good, healthy relationships? It's possible, but one man or one woman can't do it by themselves. It requires team efforts.
Okay, so Safura, being an activist, maybe you can give us some insight or better understanding of how did the 16 days of activism come around?
Well, it's 16 days of activism has come around for many years now, right? Because we've noticed that gender-based violence against women and children have become more rife. And if you look at the stats, at least 1 in every 10 is being raped today. 1 in every 10 women is being murdered today. 1 in every 10 child is being abused. And so it has been decided that we should set aside 16 days to create, what is activism, I think? Activism is to be proactive in educating, in making people aware of how to get protection orders, how to stop the abuse, and also to encourage people in relationships. Some women, they don't know where to go. Who's going to look after them? So they stay in that abusive relationship. So by doing things and educating the people, you are being an activist. Women don't need to stay in a relationship where they are beaten black and blue every day. There is law to help them.
So Safura, tell us, what initiatives are you taking or your group taking? What do you plan on doing for those 16 days?
All right. Firstly, the 16 days of activism is from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. So one of the things, there's quite a few activities planned, but what we planned at SANZAF and also with the radio is that on the 24th, we'll have a radio interview on a person that has been abused and how they spoke up and how they stood up and how they took action and how their lives have been changed. And then on Wednesday, the 27th, we have a talk about self-defense, how you'll be able to do self-defense. On the 4th of December, we have another talk by another woman that has been abused. And on the 10th of December, we're having a program where we're going to educate people on how to be emotionally strong, self-defense. We're going to get the police service to talk about how you apply for a protection order, where are the places you can go if you need to leave home. So those are the activities that we would be doing. But throughout the 16 days, we would be giving fridge magnets away with the emergency telephone numbers and also badges saying that we support 16 days of activism.
So it's pretty much educating people more in that timeline as to what actions they can take, who they need to contact, and so forth.
Absolutely. Everything we do revolves around creating awareness, educating the community, and telling people that they do not need to live under those circumstances. Life is so beautiful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with so much. And yet we settle for so little. We actually let ourselves down because we are blessed so much. And we have all these gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. We should be using it to educate the community and to be able, even Islamically, the Quran speaks about abuse, how a man should treat a woman. We don't even do that. we need to start from simple basics from your home and then go to the community. We need to live the life that our Quran teaches us, the Hadith teaches us. And if you look at all those things, and if we carried these things and lived by those things, maybe the world would not be full of violence.
Better place. So Safura, all these activities that you're putting together from the 25th of November to the 10th of December, tell us more about these events. Is this only open to females or is it applicable to both men and women?
The events, the talks that we are having and the other programs are open to men as well. Because we also believe that men also suffer violence. However, gender-based violence affects more women and children. But men need to be educated as well. Anger management is something that men need to learn how to deal with. And that's so important. So we have a talk on the 27th at Sanzaf. We have a talk at the 4th of December at Sanzaf, and we have a talk in Overport as well.
So Safura, how would viewers get in touch with you if they'd like to attend these talks?
They can call me at 031 309 6786, or they could perhaps call me on my cell as well, not just for gender-based violence, but also on how we can empower people with disabilities as well, on 072 417 4422.
Okay, so Safura, just before we wrap up our show today, what message would you like to share with our viewers? So Safura, could we just recap on those dates for the events? I need the dates. Where would these events be taking place and when? Would it be in the mornings or the evenings?
Okay, firstly, there'll be a radio interview on Sunday the 24th. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention the station though, but there would be a talk at Sanzaf on the 27th at 11, and there'll be one on the 4th of December also at 11 o'clock, and the 10th of December will be in Overport from 10 to 12, and we will be distributing fridge magnets with emergency numbers, and we'll be providing badges to say that we take a stand against gender-based violence. Over and above that, I will be speaking at various places where they've been inviting me to talk about disabilities, because as I said, it's also Disability Month. And if people need me to also do that for them in their companies, they're welcome to call me on the numbers that I've stated. And any further information as well, you can also call me or email me on Safura, SAFFURA .Khan, KHAN, at Sanzaf, SANZAF.org.za.
Safura, before we leave today, what message would you like to share with our viewers?
I want to say so many things, but I want to leave you with three things that I want to say. The first quote is that in life we are none other but a moving finger. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. Nor all your piety, nor all your wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, and nor shall our tears wash a single word of it, unquote. You know, we have the time to do things. We don't want to spend our life regretting why we didn't do this, because we cannot go back in time. We can only go forward. Another statement I want to share in my closing remarks: nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And the last statement, and it's my favorite one and I use it everywhere: Earth's greatest treasure lies in human personality, and that service to humanity is the best work of life.
Alhamdulillah. Well, those were indeed beautiful words and something that we need to ponder about. I want to thank you once again for joining us on Modern and Modest. And as always, allowing us to appreciate what we have that we so take for granted. And that was Safura Khan from Sanzef and the Phoenix Light Group for the Disabled. And inshallah, I hope that you would be in touch with her so that as a community, we can make a difference. Until next week, from myself, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.